Good morning, friends of Blue Smoke and Black Ink. Uh, we've got a podcast here that's 30 minutes of a sit down with some of the most accomplished writers in America. I don't think I'm overstepping my bounds to say that. Most of you who have seen this show before, I don't know why they keep showing you instead of me, Danielle. I'm the one talking, but anyway. I'll get this straight. The technology is still amazing for me. Anyway, most of the time, if you've watched this program before, you know that poetry is a bit over my head. I'm kind of on Mars. I've sat through a lot of poetry readings with no idea of what's going on. I'll just try to make a face so I don't look stupid. I'll go, oh, yeah, it's very good. But not with this book. This book is just incredible. It's Hunger by Danielle Jones, our guest here today. And hi, Danielle. How you doing?
I'm doing well. Thanks so much for having me on.
Oh, it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. If I were not such a ham, what I would do is just give you the entire. Oh, let me start the timer. I would give you the entire half hour to read your poetry. But you know me, I like to talk, I like to chat. So we'll be doing some chatting before we give you a chance to read. The first thing is, what amazed me about this book, I'm a big fan of form in writing. I love structure, and I'm always talking about to other writers about that. This book is very well organized into three separate sections, but the first section amazes me. It reminded me of the Italian cinema neorealism right after World War II. Movies like, oh, The Bicycle Thief and Cinema Paradiso and Umberto D. But you're a 20th, 21st century lady. What gave you the idea or the inspiration to do that, to write a section on Italy after the war?
So life imitates art and vice versa, I guess. My mom was Italian. She was born in 1937 in Ceprano, which was a province of Rome, and lived there until she was 20, so 1957. So she was living the things that you see in the movie Open City, for example, starring Anna Manin. And yeah, so I think that a lot of those poems are based on stories that she told me. Of course, they have me all over them because my imagination is writing them, but they're based on her stories. And she loved film as well. So I don't know how much her stories were influenced by neorealism, but she was really living in that time and experiencing those things. And then I also love film, and I think that you could argue that there's a little bit of Fellini in my poems too,
Yeah.
sort of his I guess the emotional immediacy that he has, but with the fabrication that's all around it. Like I think my poetry does a bit of that. That's at the core of Fellini. And so, or another way to put it is, as Tennessee Williams says, my work is emotionally biographical or biographical. So even if some of the events are imagined, I think there's a true emotional immediacy to them. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that sure does. And it also goes with a biography that I'm going to read that I forgot to read, or a capsule of you, because it mentions you as an artist as well as a poet. When your mom was telling you those stories, you as a little child, were you already thinking as a poet, or when did you decide to become a poet? I guess is my overall question. It's a sloppy question, but give us a precise answer to it.
That's a great question. And I don't think I ever decided to become a poet. I think it kind of just happened to me. So I came to love literature very early and very naturally. My big sister, who was 10 years older than me, loved literature and she read to me all the time. And along with nursery rhymes and fairy tales, she would read me whatever she was reading. So by four, I'd heard all of, Edgar Allan Poe's stories. By 10, I'd read Kafka's Metamorphosis. When she left, I was about 8 years old, and she left her college anthology, which was poetry. And so at that time, I read poems by Gregory Orr, Anne Sexton, Sharon Olds, Lucille Clifton, Ruth Stone. But I didn't start writing poetry until much, much later. What I would do early on was my parents took me to the library every week, and I would get a huge stack of books. And every week, I would sit down at my dad's typewriter and I would write a book, which was basically just writing one of the books that I just read, like mimicking it,
Yeah.
modeling, if I want to be kind of. I started journaling at that age too, around 10, because I had read The Diary of Anne Frank and I had read Laura Ingalls Wilder. So I started journaling. I would write stories, I would write books. Um, but poetry happened for me when I was 13, and I write in this book about trying to kill myself at 13 and ending up hospitalized. And it was during that period where poems started happening. And I cannot tell you why I suddenly started breaking the line. I've said before, maybe that was all I had breath for at the time, but that's when it happened. And I think that poetry for me is the truest form. I still write stories, I still write essays, I write scenes for plays. I am working on a novel that I don't know that I'll ever do anything with, but I'm just doing it for myself for fun.
Good.
Um, but poetry is the thing that feels most like me. It feels like it's in my body, like it lives inside, right alongside my heart, in
Oh,
my chest. It's just in there.
that's wonderful. It's amazing you can put an exact year or even date when the tragedy of your young life. And we're going to get to that section two. Am I wrong in assuming section two are the problems and trials you had in childhood before you were an adult?
Yes, no, that is correct.
Yeah, let me interrupt by just introducing you to our readers because some of them you may not know, or they might not know you. And here's what it says. And again, this wonderful book about the author. Danielle Jones is a poet, an artist, and an educator. She holds an MFA from UMass Boston. Her work has appeared in the Beloit Poetry Journal, Best New Poems, Consequence Magazine, Memorious, Rattle, and elsewhere. She is a recipient of a Rona Jaffe Writers Award, a St. Botolph's Club Emerging Artist Award, a Mass Cultural Council Artist Fellowship, and a Brother Thomas Foundation Fellowship. She teaches writing at the University of New Hampshire, where she directs the Nasrat Yassini Poetry Festival and manages Yaz Press. I've known you peripherally for a number of years, Danielle, but I've really never talked to you like this. Can you, I don't know if it's comfortable giving us a broad brushstroke encapsulation of your life. Where were you born? Where did you spend your young years? Where are you now? Can you do that for us?
All right, I'm 50 years old, so let me see if I can do this quick. I've lived a lot of life. Um, so I was born in Vicenza, Italy, kind of by circumstance. Even though my mother was Italian, I was born there because my father was an American soldier. Did 30 years in the U.S. Army, and so he
Oh,
was stationed in Vicenza. But because I was born there, I have dual citizenship, and I also lived with my Zia Maria, my mom's sister, for a time when I was little. So my first language was actually Italian because of that. We moved to Anniston, Alabama when I was 3.5. Again, my dad was stationed there. He retired in Anniston when I was 10. So I went all the way through school in Alabama. And then after high school, I moved back to Italy and I lived there for 4.5 years, which are a lot of the events that happened in section three of the book. And it was there that I became a mother to my oldest son, Alex, whose birth is in this book. And then I moved back to Alabama again as a single mom, and for a number of years just worked and eventually got back in school. And the working was all over the place. I mean, I was a carny, I was a chef, I worked at a nursing home, I ran a cafe. I've been a caterer, I've done just so many jobs. And then I got back in school full time and kept working, and then eventually got my 2 degrees in Alabama and then moved up here to go to UMass Boston to get my MFA in poetry. I studied with Lloyd Schwartz and Joyce Pesseroff and Jill McDonough and Suji Kwok Kim at UMass Boston. And it was a great experience and really changed my life. So,
Wow. And where are you now? What's your daily life like now?
so I live in Salem, Massachusetts, and I write and know a bunch of really cool writers like you. And I work at the University of New Hampshire. I teach writing, composition, and poetry, run two festivals, and manage Yes Press, which publishes three poetry books a year. And then I also do a little bit of volunteer work with Mass Poetry, the Salem Lit Fest, and the Boston Book Festival.
Oh, wow, that's fascinating. How do you do the New Hampshire work from here in Salem?
Well, I work remotely 3 days a week, and then I go the 2 days that I teach to campus
Oh,
and
you do. You commute over there.
meetings and things like that. Yeah, it's a 50-minute reverse commute. It's actually a beautiful drive. Reminds me of Alabama.
Oh,
Beautiful
gee, I'm
lakes.
learning so much about you that I didn't know. I didn't know any of this. I'll stick my big nose into something I shouldn't be, but Danielle Jones is a beautiful name. But may I suggest that as a middle name, was your mother's maiden name or Felicini?
Filichetti, which is a
Why don't
derivative of
you why don't you
S.
publish as Danielle Filichevsky Jones? Maybe it's the Italian in me coming out. But have you ever considered that?
Um, no.
No, you can say no. That's all right.
I did originally. So I started being interested in Bordighera Press, who published my book when I was
Yeah.
30 and started writing again. I had taken like a 6 year break. And I remember at the time they had a contest for books and it said you had to have an Italian last name. And I actually
Oh,
wrote to them and was like, but what about someone who doesn't because their mother married, and they changed the rules because of that letter. And then, all these years later, it benefited me. So
oh, wow. Yeah, I love the that press. They've also published a friend of ours and recently passed away, Jen Martelli,
I know
and
she quoted my book. I am
yeah, yeah.
very dear
I know
friend.
you have some beautiful words about her in your book. It was a tragedy for all of us. And I don't know if you know a poet named Tony Magistrali. He teaches up at UVM, and he's been published by that press too. Which leads me to something else. In your book, again, here it is. You mentioned things like VIA Folios 183. What does that mean?
Oh, I think are you just talking about the list at the back of the
It's
book
the
of all
very
the things
first
they've
page of the
published?
book. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's just a list of the books that they've published. If you look at the very back
Oh,
of the book, they have a whole list of all of their catalog,
okay.
and that's what they call them, the Via Folio.
Oh, okay. I see.
Voices of Italian America Folios is what I believe it stands for.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, so I'm learning an awful lot about you. I never realized this. You don't have a Southern accent and you don't have an Italian accent. Is that by choice or you just came upon it naturally?
It's just, yeah. I grew up in Alabama, but with a mother with a very strong Italian accent, a father with a very Bostonian accent, surrounded by people with Southern accents. And then I went to Italy. And when I came back, people in the South said I had an Italian accent. In Italy, of course, they hear an American accent. So I just, I never
Yeah.
fit anywhere, let's say it that way.
Oh, what a fascinating life. I've got a million other questions, but I want to make sure you read some of your poems. And I don't know if you've ever seen this station before, but again, I'm such a ham that I jump in and read some of my subjects' poems. So I have at least one poem of yours that I want to read and explain. But why don't you introduce us to a few of a few of your poems from Hunger and read them, would you? And tell
Sure.
me what page they're on because I'd like to follow along.
Okay. So I thought I might start with um, Pietà on page 19.
Uh-oh, I think that was my choice. Wait a minute. You've got a couple called Pietà.
Yes, this is the first one. If you had that as your choice, you could read that and then I'll read the other one. Do you want to do it that way?
It is my first choice. Could I?
Yes,
Thank
please.
you. I know this is ridiculous and it goes against all rules, but I'm going to read your poem for you. And the reason is I grew up in an Italian American family in a little neighborhood called Duck Alley on Long Island, and you basically described our dinner every night. I
Mhm.
just was amazed. But here it is. This is Pietà by Danielle Jones. We sit shoulder to shoulder to shoulder. See, I've screwed it up already on you. Let me start again. We sit shoulder to shoulder, pass chipped white plates to one another. Papa pours the last of the wine, and we're all given a thimbleful. Oh, I remember that as a kid. We make up stories, raise our voices to the rafters, try to be louder than the noontime news, strikes, beatings, blacklisted names crackling through the speakers. Our fathers again disappearing in the dust and din. Mama spoons rust-colored sauce from a dwindling pot, pushes little bites of meat she saved onto the boys' plate before they're sent to lie in their beds, to rest, wait for better days, keep them out of the cattiva strade. I hear her say, I see her I see their sock feet from hell. I'm sent to sweep. My muscles flex, unflex, flex again. See the strength hidden beneath my olive skin. These poems are so accessible to me, Danielle. I can't tell you. I understand them. I feel the pain in them. I feel the pleasure in them. They're just excellent. I taught school in Winooski, Vermont for 30 years, and I had to read a lot of bad writing, a lot of terrible sophomore and freshman composition. But I do remember one child. It was a poor town, French Canadian town in those days, and I remember an essay one of my students wrote and a description of how when they were so poor, their mom would give the meat of the soup to the kids and she would just be happy with the broth. And that's mentioned in there too. It's universal. That's beautiful. But here I am talking my way.
Did your family eat polenta?
Oh yeah. I was
So
never impressed by polenta.
So that
And
was the story my Zia told me. She would serve the polenta on a big, huge wood cutting board, and
yep.
she would plop the meat in the middle because she said that was what they did when they didn't have much meat. Was like they would put the meat right in the middle, and they had to kind of
Oh.
work towards the meat.
Yeah, no, we just had polenta with tomato sauce and that was it. And aglio olio was served with sardines and anchovies, and my brother and I used to hate it. We would smell it coming home from school from a block away, and we'd say, "Oh, aglio olio tonight. What are we gonna do?"
We
But
didn't put that in ours. It was just garlic, olive oil, and salt and pepper. But that poem is based on my grandfather's story, Angelo Filicetti, who he was an engineer and he was blacklisted because he refused to become a card-carrying fascist. They would beat him, they
oh,
would break his fingers, break his nose, and he was blacklisted and for years could not get work. And he would have to get on his bicycle and ride kilometers out of town, just work a day labor job just to get
oh,
money because
wow.
he refused to be fascist.
And that reminds me of another poem in Hunger, where Hitler is executing members of the resistance. If one member of the resist, or if a Nazi soldier was killed, then they would take revenge out on any number of the population. But here I am talking, talking, talking. Here is Danielle explaining and reading some of her poems without D. Filippi interrupting. Go ahead, Danielle. It's all yours now.
All right, I will read the second Pietà. This one is based on the statue by Michelangelo in 1499. Oh, how I wanted her alabaster skin, her sculpted breasts, her arms strong, folds of robe, her mountainous curves. Wanted her knees parted and locked like when she gave birth, sway back, sprawled lap, solid as a tree trunk. Look at the ruffles carved in marble, the ripples, her gathered gown, flowing river of stone cascading down to her perfect chisel chipped toes. I needed the cool of her smooth brow, half closed eyes, her hush, hush, baby. I didn't want her upturned hand. empty as why, accepting empty sky. No, I wanted the other hand, the one clinging fiercely, furiously holding her dead son.
Oh, wow. Just beautiful and a beautiful ending there too. As you could tell, I'm a complete buffoon when it comes to poetry. You're speaking in Michelangelo's voice there. Do I have that right?
No, I actually
Oh,
imagine more as the speaker being the young girl that's in the first section, but in
oh,
reality, it's probably me a little bit. I'm obsessed with that sculpture, so that was less one of my mom's stories and more my own love of that sculpture, which was in the church that we went to when I was little.
oh,
Um, and I was always just thought it was so beautiful, and
yeah,
I can't really think of a better way to embody grief than that sculpture.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, I misinterpreted it, but I see what you're saying now as the young girl doing that. I was in Life magazine once in my life when I was a teenager. The Pietà came to the Flushing's World's Fair, and a buddy of mine, Johnny Allen, and I went to see it. And it was on a people moving platform going across. And the Life magazine photographer just happened to snap the picture of the Pietà as we were being transported by. And so the back of our heads got into Life magazine. We are excited by that. And getting back to your poems, hunger is such a beautiful name for it because there's so much food and not always pleasant food. Sometimes aglio, olio, and polenta, but a lot of mention of food and hunger in this. Read us another poem, Danielle. I'm really enjoying myself.
Okay, I think I'll skip to the third section, which is there's a poem where I arrive in Italy as a 19-year-old. So this is in 1993, and it's on page 83, Pane and Olio. Pane and Olio, Rome, 1993. My Zio Ugo came to get me at the airport, hugged me even though I barely remembered him. He had to bend over to kiss my cheek, tall and thin egret of a man. He took my bags, put them in his blue sedan, and we sped off down the freeway, zipping in and out of traffic, more near misses than I could believe, all while trying to speak to each other. Italian was my first language, but I lost it somewhere in the woods of Alabama, kept enough to eavesdrop on my parents. Now I was trying to tell him how I'd been dreaming of pane and olio, bubbling about how impossible it was to get good bread where we lived. Pane and olio? He asked, fingers to his mouth, miming the act of eating. I nodded, and he screeched to a halt on the side of the highway, other cars rushing past us. Vieni, he said, gesturing for me to follow. He went to the back of the car, opened the trunk, and pulled out a huge loaf of pane casaricho, a serrated knife, a jug of oil shining green in the afternoon light. He even had a small pinch of salt, and right there on the side of the autostrada, he made me pane and olio, a welcome to Italy. Jet lagged, yet hyper aware, it felt like a dream. I'd just arrived, and already I was being fed.
Oh, that is so beautiful. Just terrific. And there was no anchovies involved. It was not aglio olio at all. Pane olio, bread and oil. How long a time was it between the time your uncle did that for you and you wrote that poem? Was it an immediate thing or was it years later or what?
Years and years later. So I actually wrote that poem after the book had already been accepted for publication. I went on a little writing tear. If anyone who knows me knows that this fits me. I originally sent Bordighera Press 30 pages. This book ended up 118 pages. They
Wow.
were so generous, and I shout out to Nicholas Grosso. They were so generous with letting me be creative even in the publication process. So I wrote a lot of new poems. I added some poems that I was writing back and forth with a friend during this time. I even, when I received the proof, in a mad dash, like wrote a second poem responding to one of the poems in the proof, and then asked for that to be included in the book. So the second birth, I have my proof upstairs where I actually wrote it next to the first birth. Um, So that poem was written after the fact because I just really wanted to do something to honor Ziogo in that moment. And especially after the second section where there's so much deprivation, and so much like disordered eating and issues around food,
Yeah.
it just felt like suddenly that moment kind of poemed up in me about like, wow, my welcome to Italy was very different,
Oh,
than what I'd
wow.
experienced in my childhood.
That's wonderful. How many presses would do that for an artist, It's a
They were great. Yeah.
pronounce it correctly because I always mispronounce it. Bogadera, is it called?
Bordighera.
Bogadera. Yeah, I mean, the fact that they worked with you like that is just amazing. What a wonderful group of people. And that name you mentioned, I remember Jen Martelli mentioning his name too as being honored to work with him. Oh, gee,
Yeah,
that
Nick is wonderful. And yeah, I mean, to me, poetry is a kind of alchemy. That's where it's like very different than other forms of writing. Because I journal, like I have poems that I think I've just written, and then I'll be looking through old journals and I'll find the seeds of that poem or a draft of that poem from 10 years ago. And I'm like, oh, I was already trying to write this poem. So I have a very strong belief that like what is meant for me to write it is going to keep finding me. I'm a very impatient person, but I can be amazingly patient around the writing process because I really believe the poems are going to happen when they happen. And sometimes, like, Rilke's idea of you have to change your life, sometimes poems are little nudges that you have to change things in your life. And sometimes you can't write the poems you need to write until you make the changes in your life. So I believe it's a very organic process that goes back and forth. And getting to do that with this book was very special.
did you have notes on your uncle, your Zia picking you up in Italy for that poem, or that was just straight s- sense memory that you just remembered those details?
Just memory. And that's one of the reasons I think that I am a poet, like at my core. Um, I don't know that there's a word for this. I don't know that it's even a real thing, but like people talk about photographic memory. I
Yeah.
don't have that, but I think I have almost like that in a sensory form. I can go back to memories and I can see every and feel every sensory detail of them. I can smell, I can hear things. I can remember things very, very vividly when they were impactful moments for me. And so, yeah, so as I was reading the poems and putting the book together, that kind of just came back to me. And I was like, I want to write that because it feels like it's a good
Oh, that's
gateway into the third section.
that's wonderful. You said you're working on a novel and you're also writing poems. Do you have any concept of a finished book in mind that you'll be sending out soon, or you're not close to something like that?
So interestingly enough, I have two, maybe three books of poetry that
Oh,
are fairly finished. I have one that I thought was going to be my first book that I was actually sending out for about 10 years. It was a finalist in three contests. It was almost taken by a couple big presses. And then I kind of lost my way with it. I started to feel like I cut it and cut it and cut it until it became something different. And now I think I need to revisit it and think about the form. It needs to be completely different. I had another book, which was my thesis for UMass Boston, which was based around like it's called Descartes' Daughter or the Human Machine. I'm not sure which one yet. Um, and it has a lot of poems about automatons and things like that. And while I was working on it, I kind of realized that I wanted to end my marriage and that that's what the book was really about. And so I put that one away because I thought I need to do those things first. And so I might revisit that one next and then jump into the other one that I thought would be my first book because I think that one needed more time to sort of simmer.
oh,
Um,
wow.
and and this book has an interesting story too because the first section I actually wrote a long time ago. I wrote those poems while I was at UMass Boston. They were kind of the poems I was working on when um, when I didn't have something organic happen that week for workshop, these were the poems I kept going back to and trying to write based on these stories my mom had told me. And I actually got to share about 10 of them with her before she died.
Oh,
She died 2 days after her 72nd birthday, and I had sent her the poems for her birthday, and she responded to them. Her comment is in the book. She actually had kind of a funny response. But then she died, and I couldn't look at them for a really long time because I
wow.
just grieving and sad. And then in 2020, so like a decade later, I sat down during the pandemic in about 2 weeks, just wrote the second section in a rush.
Great.
Um, didn't think I was going to publish them, didn't think I was going to share them with anyone, never workshopped them, never showed anyone. And then all of a sudden, in this just impulse, sent them to Bordighera Press the summer of 2024, and they decided to publish them. So it all happened very quickly after
Oh, that's
after sitting for
wonderful.
about 20 years. So
Wow. Yeah, I've just been informed by Zoom that they're ending this session. I can't tell you how much fun I've had. I wanted to talk about some of our mutual friends like January O'Neill, and I know you're a close friend to the leader of our writing group, Susanna Baird, but we'll just have to save that for another time. Danielle, I can't tell you how much fun I've had. Thank you so much for eliciting all sorts of emotions within me. The last time I tried to end a meeting, I had forgotten that my computer screen is not a touch screen, so I spent about 5 minutes lunging up the screen. But I'm going to try to end this screen with a or end this session with a mouse now and a cursor. So thank you very much. It was
thank
just
you so
a
much
great
for the
time.
time and for reading my book.
Oh yeah, I just loved it. You're my favorite poet, but that's don't take that to heart because my last favorite poet was Ogden Nash. So you're in better company. Have a great
Log
Christmas
Nest
and
too.
bye bye, Danielle. Thank you so much.
Bye.